I'm Joshua Adams, and this is the Industry Insights Podcast, where I am joined in the Rock Paper Simple studio by community leaders as we dive into industry topics and perspectives. Thanks for joining us today. I have Marika Koch with us today. So Marika has been an educator for quite some time now,
Yes.
both a teacher, you're working on your doctorate in education, a lot of background in there, both domestic and international, correct?
Yes, I did take a group of students
Awesome.
on a study abroad
Awesome.
trip to Zambia, Africa.
Wonderful.
So,
Well, thank you for
yes.
joining us today and spending some time with me.
Of course.
So getting into it, what I'd like to talk a little bit about is just kind of the evolution of education over time,
Mhm.
how students learn, and how we educate them, if that makes sense. So let's
Yeah.
start with just talking about what are some of the things you've seen over the years change in education.
Gosh, there's been so many changes in education. I started teaching back in 1997. I'm not that old, but I guess I am. And I taught at the elementary level. So I think at the time when I began, the parents were really involved in their child's education, but they also allowed the teachers to make the decisions in the classroom and supported them. And that might be one big change that I'm kind of seeing, that there might not be as much support. However, I mean, I've seen the gamut. So you got the parents that give like too much support, and then you get the parents that are hands off. So I taught fourth grade one year, and I had this fourth grade student, and she was brilliant. She was really very, very smart, and she came from a great family. And we read a book about, I think it was The Castle in the Attic. It was one of the stories we were reading that year. And it was open house, and I had all the students create their own castle. So they got to build it however they wanted and bring it to school. They created a model, and they had them on the desks, and the parents got to go around and look at everyone's model, right? And I didn't even grade them yet. I just had them out. And her parents actually came to me and said, "Please fail her." And I was like, "What? She's a brilliant student. Why would I fail her?" And they said, "She waited till the last minute. She just did this last night. This is not her best work, and she needs to learn what it's like to fail." And I was like, I can't fail her. She did the assignment. Like, she did a good job. It looks fine. You couldn't tell that she did it at the very last minute. But that's kind of the difference. You know what I mean? The parents back then were very much pro making sure that their kids were learning not just content, but actually learning how to be good humans. And they were really invested in that. And I think a lot of parents try to do that, but I don't know that if they know how to do that. Like, I don't know that they're giving the teachers as much credence.
So speaking to that, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, this is something that's important and that you've seen. So how would you advise, right? And so you say, hey, if a parent were to say, well, how do I do that? How do I do that
Right.
without going too far, or do it in a productive way where I'm not micromanaging, but I'm also being supportive? What does that look like?
Well, that's a great question. So for even in this situation, I was a new teacher, and I was like, am I supposed to just do what the parent tells me to do? Because, you know, you're not sure, and you're trying to please the parents, you're trying to please administration. There's a lot of people that have their hands in the classroom, but you really can't do that. Like, she did the assignment, she followed the rubric. I had a rubric. She met the criteria, so she was able to get the good grade. And I think that that's what you have to do. You have to have a rubric. You have to have standards. You have to be able to follow those standards and make sure that the students are meeting those needs. So I think that's how you make sure that you're successful.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's funny looking at, hey, you know, what one type of behavior they were trying to discourage.
Right.
But I remember when I was taking some math classes early on in college, and I would absolutely wait until the last minute. And even worse, boy, and I'm admitting to this, even worse, I wouldn't do any of the homework at all because it wasn't due until the
Mhm.
test was due. So I literally would just let stack up.
Right.
And then, because I ran a business at the same time, and I would put it off until the night before.
Right.
The test was always in the morning. And so I would sit down the night before at about, I don't know, eight at night, and I'd pull up all the homework, and I would just start cranking through it. and cranking through it and cranking through it and cranking through it. And I would stay up all night.
Right.
And I would do all the homework. It would take me 10-ish hours, 12-ish hours. Then I would go drive and take the test. And I aced every single test I ever took.
I bet you did great.
The highest I ever scored was 116%.
Oh my gosh.
Because you had the bonus questions,
Yeah.
right? And I would get 100% of the every time.
Right.
And then I would get the bonus questions every time.
Right.
Because it was so fresh. I just spent 12 hours doing this.
Right.
I was literally I would be falling asleep just getting them right because it was like automatic at that point.
Exactly.
And I got it done.
True. Okay. But you didn't put it into your long-term memory.
Right.
It was just in your short-term retrieval. Right. Grab those answers, take that test. Now, I have 4 kids. They're all entirely different. And that is child number 2 right there. So my child number 2, and he made it all through high school being able to just do that. He could not turn in homework and do great on tests. He could just sit in class and listen and just remember the information. But eventually, if you go far enough in education, it will catch up to you because eventually you have to be able to apply that knowledge. And I think that's where we're at now. It's not how you teach. It's because even the kids that are in elementary school right now, we don't know what they're going to have to learn 20 years from now. You have to teach them how to be a good lifelong learner so that they're able to troubleshoot and they're able to create those apps that haven't even happened. I was just talking to my class the other day about Amazon. I'm like 20 years ago when you guys were in elementary school, who would have thought that you could call up Grubhub and have food delivered or Amazon and get packages in 2 days? Like in 20 years, things have changed so much. So we don't even know what's coming around the pike.
Well, it's so rapid, right? As far as the advancement of technology, AI, what will that look like in 20 years? I mean, look how fast that's come. And realistically, looking at how fast the explosion of knowledge and technology has happened in a very, very short period of time.
Right.
I mean, really not that long ago, computers weren't a thing. I mean, really not that long ago in the grand scheme of human history, if you will.
Right.
And the advancement is just incredible. So it used to be you'd learn a skill and that skill was for the rest of your life. Now, again, that's that fundamentals of learning how to learn, which is interesting. When I was a kid, that was what my mom always told me. She goes, I don't care if you remember all of this. In fact, you're probably not. I was homeschooled.
Right.
And she said, you're probably not going to remember all of this, but I need you to be able to go find it. I need you to be able to find the information that you need quickly. And so she taught me how to learn. And I think that is probably one of the most valuable things that my mom gave me growing up was this ability to go, I don't know that, but I'll go find out. I know how to go find out. I know how to ask questions. I know how to dig. And I always thought that was kind of my superpower for a long time was I almost never took the I don't know as an answer. I mean, I was willing to say I don't know, but I was always willing to follow up with, well, let me go find out.
Yes.
And I think that was it really drove me a lot. And I think it really helped me a lot in business because when I got into the business world, I was very much able to operate on I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know, but I want to go find out. And so a lot of my early career was seeking out mentors. Who knows, right? If I don't know, who does know? Who's been there?
Right.
And I really think a lot of that flowed through. So I think that teaching, that resonates with me when you said that in terms of teaching students how to be lifelong learners. So maybe play along with that a little bit more. How do you see that happening, not happening? What are some ideas around that?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that students need nowadays is really connections. They need to learn their social skills because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how to even find the information you don't know. But if you have the right people in your corner, then they're going to be able to point you in the right direction. So if you're able to have those great social skills and those connections with people, then you can figure out what you don't know and they can help you find those answers. I mean, even back in the day, it's like we would go to the library to research things. Remember, we would have like the encyclopedias and you'd have to pull out the B when you're looking up Britain, or whatever. You had to go find the piece. Now you have a little smartphone, a little device that tells you all those answers. So even when I give my students tests, I don't give them rote memory because you can ask Siri and she'll give you the answer. You don't need that. You need to be able to apply that knowledge. So it's like, show me how you're going to use this in the real world. Give me an example of what your classroom is going to look like as a future teacher. How is this going to play out in your classroom?
Right. you've got a bit of the soft skills there
Mhm.
and a bit of the critical thinking, right? So
Absolutely.
what are those soft skills that I need to engage in the world around me? And especially
Right.
in an increasingly digital world where
Yes.
we're not exposed to as much of the peopling, as you will.
Yes.
And how does that work?
Right.
Because like you said, a lot of what I've learned from
Mhm.
doing and from other people, from mentors, from
Right.
people who've done it before me, who are much smarter than I am. And that ability to go out and find those people and engage is a huge part of where I've come from over the
Right.
years. So I love that. And I think then applying that critical thinking to it as well.
Right. I think so too. I think the other piece to this is motivation. So I think that students need to be like intrinsically motivated to do well. You know what I mean? They need to want to learn. They need to see that I don't need to get an A on this test. I'm not learning this math material so I can ace it. I'm learning this math material so that I can later on apply it in the business world or later on apply it as an engineer or whatever they might want to do. So just seeing the connection to the real world, I think is going to help them get that intrinsic motivation.
I think that that's a lot of where JA comes into play,
Oh,
right? We see
yeah.
JA, junior achievement, a lot.
Mhm.
I've been a board member for a long time, very passionate about it.
Mhm.
Years ago, I had to step off some boards because some life was just getting crazy,
Yes.
and that was when I said I am not stepping off this board because I so believe in that financial literacy piece of it. But I think a lot of what happens with JA students is they get that vision, they get that where am I going, why? Maybe it's the question of why is being answered,
Right.
right? And how many times as a kid do I remember going, "How am I ever gonna use this? This is stupid." Right? I mean, looking at math, I hated math. It was funny. I
Right,
was
right, right,
so
right.
good at math, but I hated it. I was it's so funny if I look back at, like, the tests and stuff that I took. I was homeschooled, but my mom was very particular with me going and doing all the testing and doing all the stuff, and
Mhm.
I learned I was able to do that. So I always scored the highest on math. Always. And it's funny looking back how so much I was like, "Algebra, this is stupid. I'll never use this."
Right.
I use I use it constantly. And it's actually funny, early career, I was a programmer and a web
Oh,
designer. So even
wow.
more so,
Yes.
algebra was relevant. And now when I look at, I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I'm always
Mhm.
running numbers, projections, cash flow, all these
Right.
things. I use it every day.
Right.
And I think it would have helped me maybe to understand a little bit of the why early
Mhm.
on. And I think I kind of did, but that's where I love how JA comes in and says, here's the skill sets.
Right.
Here's the why. Here's the types of careers you can have. Here's what business looks like. And it helps, I think, turn the gears on the why.
Right. Absolutely. My students are really involved with JA. We try to blitz a school every semester. So all the education students come in and we're going to Sherwood in a couple of weeks here. So on a
Love that. And you
Friday.
teach college level. So
I do.
these are
These are
college
college
students going
students,
in and that's
future
very cool.
teachers. Yep, yep. So future teachers going into schools, teaching JA lessons. And I tell the students that are working in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, you're going to learn something because they didn't learn those skills. A lot of the material in there, yes, they're standards. Yes, they did learn them, but they learned them amidst all the other standards, all the other stuff that you're learning when you're a JA volunteer and you're going in and you're teaching for one whole day, 5 lessons on a subject, the material really sticks with you. So I think that that's what makes it so relevant. Um, Even at the kindergarten level, it's like, I don't know if you've taught the kindergarten curriculum.
I've not done the kindergarten one.
I
I've done
have.
several of them, but I haven't done kindergarten yet. I'm not quite brave enough yet to get in the
Yes.
classroom there.
All right, you'll have to do it with me sometime. But it's like needs versus wants. And the kids, like you have a little poster and it'll have candy and an apple. And you'll be like, which one's the needs and which one's the want? And they'll be like, the candy, we need to have the candy. And you're like, no, we want candy, but we need to have the apple because that's nutritious. So it's just common sense, but it's laid out so well in a way that the kids are going to understand the material.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been in the rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really fun to watch some of the kids grab a hold of it, understand it. And to me, again, creating that sense of purpose
Right.
happens, right? And hearing them talk about what they want to do or what that could look, it lets them start dreaming, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that was something that a lot of what, when I was a kid, that my mom helped me with was, what do you want to be doing? And from a young age, I said, I want to be a programmer. I want to be a business owner. Those were the two things I wanted to be.
Wow, and you've already done them.
I
What are
was
you
able
going
to
to do
do them.
next?
I don't know. I don't know.
What else is on the list?
Right. But those were the two things that I wanted to do. Right. And
Right.
so then I felt like a lot of after that, I was able to kind of apply. Now I still didn't connect the dots. Like I
Mhm.
think I never, as funny as I wanted to be a business owner since I was a really little kid, I didn't connect the dots of algebra. I didn't connect the dots of
Right.
things like that. I remember I had a programming book that I was reading when I was in a truck with my dad driving to a landscaping job because I would work in the family business.
Mhm.
And I was young. I don't know how old I was. I mean, I must have been 12. And I'm reading the book, and it was a chapter on variables, right? Which is pretty much, it's
Right.
foundational to. And I went, "This is stupid. I'll never use variables." And, and I was like, "This, I don't understand why they're." And I like skipped the chapter, right? I literally skipped the chapter.
Oh, no.
And then a while later, I'm like struggling with how to get some things to work. And you need variables for it to work. And I remember telling my dad that, and he kind of laughed at me, right? Because he knew enough about programming to be dangerous, and he kind of knew where I was going with that.
Right.
To this day, he'll say, "Hey, don't need variables, huh?"
Oh my gosh.
To this day.
It's true. You can't skip a chapter in math. Math builds on each other. Every single core subject, continues on, like every standard. You have to master one in order to move on to the next one. So yeah, that's funny.
So speaking of JA, I think you had mentioned that you took some JA packets with you when you went over to Zambia. So tell me about that whole story.
Yes. So we had the pleasure of spending 3 weeks in Zambia teaching school, basically teaching at a little small Christian school that was kindergarten through 3rd grade. But while we were there, we also got to experience the local culture and then also look at the public school, which was amazing. So we took the JA lessons from here because we thought it'd be nice to bring JA over there. And I actually got to meet the JA Zambia. The officials from JA Zambia met me at the school because
cool.
I know it was amazing because they wanted to look and see what JA USA was doing. So we got to talk JA, which was really quite special. But yes, so in Zambia, the average daily wage is like $4.50 a day. That's what people make there. So, and there's no such thing as free education. You pay for education. So only usually one person in each family gets educated because they can only afford to send one child to school. So it's like a really big deal to be the chosen one that gets to go to school. So the kids there are just so gracious and so humble and so happy to be chosen. And they know that they're like the person that's going to help lead their family out of poverty, be able to get a great job. And teaching is a revered career there. So it's doctors, teachers, they're at the same field, at the same level of being just like the most revered profession. But it was quite different than America because we complain when we don't have enough paper to run copies or we don't have enough books. They don't have books. They have nothing. They're in a little tiny schoolhouse with broken windows. So you're getting the hot, you're getting the cold, you're getting the rain. Everything's coming in. They have holes in the roof. There's no paper. The children just recite the information. The teacher spends hours writing on the chalkboard, really tiny to fit all the curriculum on there because there are no books. And yet they're just gobbling up that information. They're just so happy to learn. So it's entirely different. But it was eye-opening for my students because they came back appreciating every little thing.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think were the biggest few lessons from that, right? You said your students came back appreciative, but what were the biggest few lessons from that trip?
I think they've realized that they could teach with so much less than they thought they needed originally. Because you realize that, you can write in the dirt and that could be a paper. You can be super creative in how you deliver lessons to keep students engaged. You can come out, you can be outside and create poetry about nature. And so they came in with an idea of how they were going to teach their lessons, and they left doing it entirely differently. and just appreciating things so much more. They're all now teachers in the school system. Some of them are in Brevard, some of them are in Orange County. They're kind of all over. But they still say that it just absolutely turned their life around as an educator.
That's wild. And I think
Yeah.
probably helped them to see too the appreciation for education,
Yes.
where it is probably, I would say, very much taken for granted here.
It is, yeah. It's just expected. It's expected that you're going to have a great teacher. It's expected that you're going to learn. It's expected that of course, your teacher's going to do everything they can, and they will. Yes, they better. That's their job. But I think it's just appreciated. So teachers are revered because they know that they've chosen that career. And we went into a third grade classroom where there were 64 students in the classroom. 64.
Oh my.
And we talk about class caps here. So yeah. And the teacher just makes it work. I mean, and the students stand up to give the answer because you're like, who out there in the sea of people is talking? I can't tell, right?
Very cool.
So yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah. So we gave the teachers in Zambia some lessons on how to better engage their students. They wanted to know some of the latest pedagogy. So I did a few little teacher workshops for them, but mostly we came away with the lessons more than giving them the lessons. I mean, just our appreciation of teaching and students and what we have in America was huge.
So looking at how education's been done in the past, how it continues to evolve, looking forward, right? Looking in the future, what are some things you see on the horizon that you see happening in terms of how education is being provided to the students? What are some things that you see coming?
Well, I'm currently in my doctorate program at UCF, so I'm working on curriculum and instruction, and I think that kind of helps because I'm evolving. Because I got my master's ages ago. It's been a long time since I've been in the classroom. So I feel like I'm learning more about cutting technology, ways to integrate, change your teaching methods to incorporate more motivation, just even looking at just how to be a better leader in the classroom. And I think that those are things that I'm now using in my own classroom, teaching my students, because like we said before, you don't know what the future holds. We don't know. So basically we need to train good humans. I mean, that's our job as a teacher, is to help them be prepared for the unexpected. Help them create the unexpected. We don't know. They're going to be the new Googles, the new Amazons, the new, future. And we don't even know what that looks like yet. So I think giving them the soft skills they need in order to succeed, motivating them to want to learn more, to become good lifelong learners, I think that's really going to be the key to them being successful adults, which we need them to be successful adults so they can take care of us in our old age.
So before I let you go, I'd love to understand and hear from you. What's your favorite part about teaching?
I love changing the future. I love having a hand in making a difference. And I feel like teaching future teachers is ideal for me because I know that if I do a good job, if I do a great job teaching the future teachers, then they're going to touch all the other kids moving all the way down, which is going to it's going to be a domino effect. And I think that's really my favorite part. But I love interacting with people. I feel like every semester I learn from them just as much as they learn from me. They keep me young. I'm learning all the slang. I'm learning all the text speak. Plus, it's fun. It's an engaging, fun profession. My classes are not boring. We are up. We are moving around. We are doing things. And it's just, I look forward to that. I look forward to going to work. I look forward to interacting with them as students.
That much is clear. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out a little bit with me, having a conversation, diving deep into education.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Industry Insights. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, comment, or even drop us a line over at rockpapersimple.com.